Welcome back to the Let's Talk Vibes podcast, where we speak soul contracts, illuminating the path to higher understanding. I'm your host, Lauren.
And I'm Yiannah. And today we have someone really special. We have with us Amanda Kanini-Dyer, who is a fourth generation medicine woman. Amanda specializes in soul contracts, divine healing, and light body activations, and also one of the most magical humans that I have ever encountered. So, Amanda, welcome to our show.
Thank you. I like that. Thank you. That's very nice.
What a
Well,
fabulous introduction, but very well deserved. She is a fabulous, fabulous lady, and you're here today to join us to talk about the five energy and how we kind of ended up having you to be the guest for this number is we were in a divine healing training just recently within the last couple of months, and you were sharing some of your perspectives on the five and even saying, I have a more unique view. Our teacher Nicholas tends to see this number as challenging, but I have a different take on it. And something we've talked about on this podcast already is that fives are very optimistic. Yiannah will tend to bring that up. And I almost feel like that's part of your view on the five is that optimistic view. So without further ado, let's really jump in. I want to hear what it is you think is so beautiful and magical about the five energy.
Wow. Okay. Right. Well, thanks. So yeah, it did come out of that. I think I was trying to say that fives get a real hard time. They get a
Yeah.
real hard time, and people tend to within the work they tend to have the impression or the understanding that fives don't pack any power or they
Mhm.
don't and so sometimes I kind of think, well, I kind of wonder, well, what do you think fives are there for then? What do they have other than what is it? Because usually what happens is that um if there's fives, people usually try and optimize their name because
Mm.
they don't want it there, or they don't want other, or they want other stuff in there because they don't feel like they can break through any of the challenges that they have in life. And that comes down to, for me, you know, without being too controversial, is the lack of understanding
Mhm.
about really what that five energy is about and where it really comes from. Do you know? And I think some of the important things that I think we need to do when we're doing this work is actually go back and look at the Hebrew.
mhm.
So fives is hey. um it's the second letter in one of the names of God, and it's one of the names of God that is not really said out loud. It's a very powerful energy. It's a very powerful number, hey. And um it is basically spirit.
Yeah.
So five is the breath, and it's about breathing spirit into something. It's about breathing life into something. So it's a very powerful energy. Um, and I know I might be jumping around here, but um, if you see fives, say in talents up against a nine in challenges,
Mhm.
you'll automatically get told you can't do
Yes.
anything with that.
Yes. It's not strong enough. It
Yeah,
won't
you're
help you.
dead in the
Yes.
water. Correct.
Because
Yeah.
the 9 we see as being the most powerful number, and that's where you talk about that we view 5 as, I hate to say weak, but just in this power
Yeah.
comparison that it's too sensitive, it's gonna see the dragon energy of the 9 and run away scared, is our often our impression.
Yeah, I like how you described it because that is kind of like how it is said and viewed.
Yeah.
But sorry, go on. Sorry,
No, so
Jana.
but that you see something different. So what is it the way that you see that differently?
Vibes bring consciousness.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Beautiful.
It brings consciousness. Fives, I think I mentioned in the class, fives to me, in my experience of fives are the historians, I believe, of all the numbers. They carry so much sort of hidden knowledge and hidden energy and hidden life and hidden parts of creation that if you have a five coming up against, so put it like this, I know
Yeah.
somebody who has nines in challenges, fives in talents. I don't really know what's in the rest of the energies, but her name was not an accident. That was the name her mother was going to give her. If she had a girl, it was set. It was set from time. That was her name. There was no accident about it. And she loves her name. She does name. There's not a chance that she's going to change her name. And once you give her understanding of what's happening with those nines, because she was feeling her nines, but once you give her understanding that your power isn't always going to be something that is physical, your power comes from within, and it comes from other places, and it comes from other dimensions. If you have issues and challenges within those nines, then it means that you are going to have to go to a spiritual place to find your answers. You're going to have to go outside the box. And it really does come down to that. And you can, and you will. So it's not a mistake. And sometimes it's viewed as a mistake. I mean, who on earth would put fives going up against a nines? Do you know what I mean? So there's lots of stuff. So yeah, where do you want to go? We kind of like
Well, okay, let's touch the surface on what the 5 actually means. Okay, the 5 is all about truth.
Yep.
Right. And it's the speech energy. Speech is actually the strength. And it's funny because I'm a 5/5 soul destiny. And at first, I remember when I took the training, I heard Nicholas say, it is a very light energy. It's not very powerful. And I remember being like, oh, okay, like whatever. We'll get back to it, I guess. But I think as I have continued on my spiritual journey, without even realizing, that 5 continues to shine for me and show up in a way where I'm like, I finally get you. Truth is not just about you speaking your truth. This is what is true as opposed to what is a lie. Or I want your truth. It's not just that. It is on a very spiritual, energetic level. The truth of life, the truth of these incarnations, the truth of spirit. And it just runs so deep. And speech is such an important aspect of this. You are here to speak your truth. You are not here to bury the things that you have to say, the things you want to share. It comes with this beautiful pioneering energy where I am a free spirit and I'm going to say the thing that I need to say. And oftentimes people who have that 5 frequency in their chart, they probably feel like the black sheep of their family, or they feel different from people. And it's not because there's something wrong with you. It is because you connect on such an ethereal level, whether you realize it or not. And you do run up against a group of people, a lot of people who just, they don't relate to you in that way. And so you feel different, or they label you different. And I feel like that has been a lot of my life. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, I love that. I would not change it for $1 million. But going through childhood and into young adulthood, it's like you are made to feel like that difference is a bad thing and not a good thing.
Yeah. So,
and where
job
I
done.
want
Go
to
home.
where I want to add some background on the 5 as well is we view the 5 as being the most spiritual number, that there are generally 4 categories. You have creative numbers, communication numbers, physical numbers, and spiritual, or some numbers can fall into multiple categories, but these are kind of the 4 categories that we see. So it is the most spiritual, as in the least physical. And here is something that I have really disagreed with our teachers on since the very beginning, is that we talk about our 2 triangles, the physical triangle, the spiritual triangle, and they say these don't interact with each other because the spiritual world and the physical world are so different. And yet I had my spiritual awakening 2020. I know a lot of people had their spiritual awakenings around that time. Even more people are having awakenings since then. And I believe those of us who are awakened at this time, we're coming into a world where that veil between these 2, what our teachers were saying are distinct worlds, I think that veil is getting so thin that there's a lot more overlap between these worlds. So something I really respect about our teacher, Nicholas, is that he really judges his opinion on what he's seen. But if you think about, he started to learn this work in the 90s. The world now is different. And so I think in some ways, what he's saying is true, but the world is changing. So that's not as true. And again, truth, the 5s, that truth is changing. And so, I bring this up to say that some of these beliefs are to say, hey, the 5 is quote unquote too weak? Well, in the physical world, yes, because there wasn't enough spiritual energy within the physical world for that power to come through, because it was powerful in the spiritual. And we talk about it being a very floaty energy. I've often described it as like fog or smoke. It's something that barely exists in the physical. It's a wisp. It's going to wisp away. It's going to blow away. And I think that's part of what we're seeing change in the world, is where that spiritual energy can take form here in the physical world. And that's allowing, I think, this different experience of the five, where it used to be far more challenging because the energy just wasn't the right fit. It's like you weren't existing here in the physical world. And we know to be grounded, you need to have a foot in both worlds. But it's like with people with fives, it's almost like you had 2 feet in the spiritual world and you were missing having that foot also in the
Right.
physical world. And that's something that can be a challenge for people who have fives. And when I look at some older, practitioners, people older than myself who started, being spiritual practitioners in the 80s before I was even born, they are the type of people who quite often were maybe not to the point of being ostracized from society, but were very apart from society. And we talk about that as being a challenge from the five. That's one of the reasons we may recommend someone to change their name, is, fives can have that difficulty integrating into society, always being an outcast, the type of people who feel like an alien and that they don't exist. And so I do think, if you were living in the 80s, to have those energies and to feel like this is going to mark you as never being able to fit in, yeah, that would be really challenging. And that might be something you want to change. But I don't think that's the case anymore.
Uh,
That's where the world I see is changing, that you can have that energy and the world is ready to embrace and to integrate that without you needing to change.
yeah, I hear all of that. I do. And yes, totally agree with the fact that, times have changed. And so that is part and parcel of the whole baggage that we have to change with it. Back in the day, the understanding was that fives in the physical part of the chart was quite rare. It isn't rare anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
see them more than often, and especially in, say, in the place of challenge. But um, I think that the information on it is very thin on the ground.
Yeah.
And that is why it feels like such a challenge. People really don't seem to understand that when you bring consciousness to something, that's how you grow from it.
Mm-hmm.
So, so there's a few things there that I'm going to kind of unpack, in the
Yeah.
sense that um, I do not see the charts or the map, I call it a map, as 2D. It's flat. I don't see it like that.
Yeah.
I see it as these energies and these numbers are constantly moving around you, and you fit inside of them, and they're constantly moving and rolling around you. And at any point in time, you're going to come up. It's a bit like I was saying to somebody the other day that it's, I mean, for want of a better explanation, it's a bit like when you go into what we used to call the one-arm bandit shops, where, you go inside and you pull those machines, those one-arm machines, and, down comes the cherries and it runs, and stuff like that. So it kind of works like that, whereby it's constantly moving and rolling around you. And as you're moving through life, these different energies are coming up. I do believe that we experience more than 7 aspects. That's just,
Mm-hmm.
that is an understanding that I have. So with these fives, or with any types, with any of the numbers, really, it really is about bringing consciousness to it and bringing understanding to it. It's not, and I understand what you're saying in the sense that how it was viewed, like, feeling like an outcast, feeling like you're on the outside. But sometimes it's in the explanation of that, and it's in the understanding of that, and it's in the knowing, okay, so that's where this energy is. This is an energy that I haven't integrated. Fives are pure spirit. It's pure spirit. I do think sometimes that you have to tell people what their superpower is. They don't actually know what it is. And
Yeah.
sometimes when they see these kind of energies, or they see these kind of numbers, everything's pretty scary about it. And everybody, I mean, look, I had somebody recently that wanted to optimize, and, all they were talking about really was wanting 10 ones and wanting nines and 10 ones. I want to have power. I want to have power. I'm thinking, where do you think this power is going to take you when everything that you need is right there? If you don't understand what you need and you're only seeing the negative of it, then yeah, you're going to hanker for this, or you're going to hanker for that, or you're going to hanker, you know what I mean? Or you're going to want this or want that. And I mean, I know we're not talking about the nines, and you probably have had, or you're going to have somebody else talk about the nines. But I always say you've got to be very careful when it comes to nines. Nines will constantly blow stuff out. That's their job. They will constantly keep blowing things out. Doesn't know when to stop. So even like, you know, I'm going to jump into other numbers, say like a 21-3. For me, don't put a nines up against a 21-3. If you are somebody that is really feeling the challenges of a 21-3 and you don't understand what's happening, don't put nines up against it. Because it doesn't know how to stop blowing it out, and it doesn't know how to stop creating stuff, and it will just show up again wearing a different pants or a different skirt. You want to bring consciousness to a 21-3, put in a 13-4. That's what that's the kind of energy that you really are looking for. Bring in the Christ consciousness energies. For me, a 21-3, and I know we're not talking about it, but I'm just saying that for me, in that aspect, you're looking at 21-3s is like that signpost before you walk out the door. If you're traveling, do you have your passport? Do you have your luggage? Do you have your ticket? Do you have all of that? Because once you go through the gateway of a 21-3, you're going into a 22-4. Are you ready for the all of it? Are you ready? Do you really know where you're at and what you are doing in life? So it brings you all these lessons for you to really get the point. So I'm saying that, and nines will keep blowing it out. So fives, come back to fives. You can't get anything more powerful than spirit. And the thing that is in your body that is activating and keeping you alive and breathing into you is spirit. So for me, when I've come across people that have fives in, especially now in the times that we're in, that have fives in challenge, in a place of challenge, what you usually find with them is that they are accessing in this lifetime every other past life that they've had. They are clearing up stuff. So they will have a lot of relationships that will fall out and fall away, or people will come into their lives and kind of disappear, and everything seems not solid enough. But that's the reason why people will come in for a moment, and I'm clearing that up and clearing up that lifetime, because they have the truth. They have the understanding about what it is that they're supposed to be doing here. And so all of this stuff about this karmic wheel that we no longer want to be engaged in or locked in or enslaved to, that's what fives are breaking down. Fives are coming in to say, I know the truth. I may not be able to speak it, but I can feel it in my body, and I know what it is I'm supposed to be doing. And so it's a heavy load when you have an energetic fives. It is a heavy load because everything is a thinking and everything is a feeling, and it's where do I place this energy? That's why they need the grounding that they do need. I used to be a tree hugger back in the day. I had no idea why I was a tree hugger. But I knew sometimes when things were really kind of like, you know, tough in my life, I used to live opposite what we called a common, which is a park. And I would just go, and I had a particular tree that I would just go and sit with my back against the tree, and I would just sit there and talk to the tree and just ask for guidance. I would have been in my early 20s. Or I would walk past trees and I could feel their energy. It's crazy. And especially being, I'm not going to be funny, especially being a Black person and going around tree hugging. Wow. Like back in the 90s, that was a bit crazy. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of stuff. Okay, so, you know, if we're looking at it in certain aspects, fives in the place of challenge, then there's a lot of stuff that goes on with it, because you are clearing up. We come in with so much information, so much stuff, and we are reliving, in for most part, so many of our past lives, because it's memory. We are trying to bring in the memory of all of it. When we talk about moving and shifting into 5D, 5D is having full knowledge of who you are, or of who all the lives you've ever been, because how we're sort of kept enslaved and trapped is not having that knowledge. You
Mm.
know, it's not having any of that knowledge because you don't have any access really to your gifts, to your talents, to anything. So when you're shifting and moving into 5D, then all those barriers between all of that, like we talked about, the veil is thinning. We have access now to all of that. And fives gives you access to that, just as how the 14 fives gives you access multidimensionally, off planet, even other lives or states of being, even, you know what I mean, before all your lives here, or even all your in between lives here, that, you know, we may travel to other places. So fives will be working through a lot of, like we've talked about before, persecution. I knew from a very young age that I would have had lifetimes as a witch. I knew very, very young that that was a given. I had that. This was long before I even had this knowledge or information on the energetic mapping of of our soul charts. And in terms of speech, tell you something very interesting. I used to stutter. I had a
Mm.
very
Oh,
bad
wow.
stutter as a child. Um, and I used to go for speech therapy. My stutter was quite bad because um, my stutter had moved into where I used to move and jerk with it in order to get my words out. So I had
Mm.
literally, you know, reached quite a tough stage. I couldn't get words out. Um, and I remember my mum, I had to go to like a specialist one day, and I remember mum having to take time off work and take me all the way up to North London somewhere to this specialist. And I remember her moaning all the way there because, you know, back in the day, taking time off work, you know, to and I think I'm living about 7 years old. And I thought as I sat on that bus, even on the way home, well, I won't be doing this again. Do you know what I
Wow.
mean? And so I kind of went through life with that, and I just decided I won't be going back there. Plus, how she was teaching me how to read, I just thought, yeah, I won't be taking that into school because that's not going to work for me. Because it was more a case of joining up all my words, so there was no break in between, and was very difficult for me in life. But it never affected my friendships. It never affected how and where I placed myself in life. I always had friends. I was always in groups of people, because obviously the only numbers in my charts aren't just fives. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
However, I hit the age of 19, and one day I just decided enough. I didn't want it anymore. And I just said, yeah, I'm over this. I guess it had a purpose. I no longer feel that I need to have it, and I'm letting it go. And I stopped stuttering.
Wow.
Wow.
That's an
Yeah,
incredible story.
very, yeah. And my middle son, he stuttered. And I and stuttering for the most part is linked to trauma. But what you have
Mm.
to look at the fives is that it isn't always trauma in this lifetime, because we have to
Right.
link it to other lives. That's what it is. We've got to take it out of this physical into the next plane. And he had he stuttered, and I took him as a dutiful mother to speech therapy, which I didn't really believe in. That's just me. I didn't believe in it. And one day we went to like a sort of like a specialized group, and there was a whole group of children in there that stuttered. And I when the children went into one group, I sat with the other parents, and we were all talking about the children. And one of the dads was speaking about the fact that his son, and I can't remember back then, he stuttered because he had witnessed his grandmother. He had found his grandmother dead.
Oh
Mm.
my God.
Yeah. So that had created, and from that day, he stopped talking. And when he did start
Yeah.
talking, it was he was stuttering. There was another lady there who she stuttered, her daughter stuttered. And when I was speaking to her about it, she said, I don't understand how you've just stopped stuttering. And I said to her, and I was speaking to her about it, and she said, well, that's really something that I have to look into. Now, I couldn't tell you where the trauma was in my life, but what I can tell you is that trauma from past lives,
Yeah.
because I was very young and stuttering, and I didn't have childhood trauma. I don't have childhood trauma. It's not something that I've blanked out or missed. I really didn't. Um, 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 So that is something that you will come across in people. It's very real that speech is something that, because of the persecution of using your voice to sway people or to sway groups or to cast spells or to all of this kind of thing, or what people thought you were about and all of that kind of stuff. And so I grew up barely being able to speak, to
Mm.
now where I'm like a runaway train, can't shut up.
And I feel like I've heard that before from people where they, have through past life regression or just other means know that in a past life they were persecuted for the things that they say. And so you can understand how, again, in that past life, it's like, okay, well, this number is going to show up now. Like, this is going to be a theme. This is something that needs to be worked through. Or, and in your case, it's like, it's really going to come in as a challenge within the physical world, like as this physical manifestation of that challenge. Whereas for some people, it could just be being very, very fearful
Mm,
to be open and expressive of themselves because they, there's that part of them that knows that this was very dangerous in the past.
correct.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely feel like I've seen that. And honestly, that's probably something so many of us in some lifetime have experienced, whether we have fives or not. But it sort of feels like, or it seems like, if when people do have fives, that's something that's being addressed in this lifetime, that's coming up.
And that's exactly what it is. And so if you throw it away, you miss the lesson.
Yeah.
You miss the point of it. Because when you come into the realization and the understanding, when you bring consciousness to it, you come into your superpower. It no longer has power over you, all of that stuff that came before. So whatever it was that was within me no longer had power over me, because I said, I
Mm.
really don't care for it. Well, what I actually said was to myself, it does not look good, and I really can't have it happening. I just started dating, and I just thought, yeah, this is not a good look.
The vanity.
The vanity, I'm telling you, but it works. Do you know what I mean? But but um, but it really is about that. And fives are asking you to do that. Fives are asking you to step into that which we are all seeking for. It's right here. It's right in front of you. That's the energy that I am. I'm spirit.
Mhm.
I'm breath. I am creation. So this is what it is. Do you know what I mean? And then with that energy and with that knowledge, because once you unlock it, comes through all that other information. See, just because you have these energies of fives, it doesn't mean, and it comes with sort of isolation. It comes with isolation. It comes with the hermit energy, because you have this otherworldly feeling about you and this otherworldly look about you. Um, Once you understand that, it begins to unlock all the other doors, and you no longer are a hermit. You're no longer on the outside looking in, because people want to have you in their space. They want to have you, they want that energy. And so everything begins to change for you. Spirit energy, I'll repeat that, spirit energy what is not light energy, in the sense that it's not, I don't mean light, but as in it's not without substance, ethereal. And when we say the word ethereal, it does not, nobody is going to take from that weak.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to take from that weak. When we talk about elemental energy, nobody's going to take from that as a weak energy. And so hay is um it is the breath. It is a major component of creation, and it is that which actually breathes life. So I, doing a little bit of research, doing a little bit of work, and oh, okay, right. So I'm just getting my memory and gathering my memory, and looking a little bit at the Zephyr Yetzer. Don't know if any of you have
Mhm.
had a chance to have a look at
Mhm.
that.
What? No, what's that?
So it's the book of creation.
Mhm.
It's the
Mm.
Jewish book of creation.
I'm
And so
Jewish,
all
I
of
should know, but no, not that religious.
well, yeah, me neither. But I've had a friend who's been sending me loads of books on it, and so I've been dipping in and tapping into it, and I so I think what I read, I can't remember what I read was that and I think it would be Avram that became Abraham, and God changed his name and put H on the end. Why? Because that is the activation of spirit. And it was breathing
Mm.
spirit into him, and then that's where the power came in. The same was done with, I think, Sarah, because Sarah was originally spelled as Sara, I think I, and the H was added. Hay was added in order to breathe spirit into that being and make them live. So
I have chills everywhere, by the way.
yeah,
The
isn't it?
power of that.
Yeah,
It's so beautiful, but it's right. What I'm experiencing is that sensitivity of the five,
yeah,
right? It's like you're actually feeling. I'm feeling the thing that you're saying, the thing that you're explaining. I'm feeling the power of it. I feel it in my body.
yeah.
It
See, I am
almost,
as well because I'm beginning to
y-
feel it now, like
yeah.
energetic.
And in very simple terms, the five is sensitive, right? So simply spoken, people are like, oh, you are so sensitive. You cry at everything. That was my childhood. I could look at a beautiful flower and cry. You would tell me a story and I would cry. You would look sad and I would just cry. I physically felt these sadness emotions and I experienced it myself. But the sensitivity really is all your sensitivity of being able to sense the spirit world. Right.
That's
And
right.
there was so much where I never understood what was happening to me. For example, I would always feel this tingling in my fingers.
Mm.
And or I would feel a heartbeat in my fingers. They would just pulsate. And I'd be like, okay, like I guess everyone probably feels that. You don't really think about it. But then I came to realize, no,
Fives think like that though.
I'm
Fives
sorry.
think fives
Yes,
think like that though. They think that everybody else. That's a classic 5-101
totally. And
behavior.
then one of my beautiful spiritual teachers, she was actually holding my hand and she goes, "Do you feel that?" And I'm like, "Yes." She goes, "That's spirit. You're actually feeling spirit." And I remember feeling like, oh my God, that's so cool that I can now understand what it is. And then every time I would think of spirit, talk spirit, or something would happen and that sensation came in, it was like as if it was talking to me. And I was like, okay, I understand it. Well, now what? Okay, now what? So, like, what does that mean? Is it as simple as I just feel it? And then as I started to tap more into the now what, and I opened myself because my understanding was expanding. As I opened myself to it, I started realizing, oh, like I haven't even scratched the surface of what that means.
Yeah.
And I remember there was an experience I had. Lauren, I may have told you this. I don't think you know this, Amanda, but one time I was with a few friends. We had joined this like better living kind of seminar. And it was like this week long. You stay at a hotel, you're like completely, it's like a Tony Robbins, like you're immersed in this work. And they put you in these small groups. And I remember there was one girl in particular who would always hang out with our group, but she never spoke to me. This entire week, she just never spoke to me. And on the last day, we were in the atrium. We were waiting to enter the meeting room. And she comes up to me and she grabs me by my wrists. And she goes, "Oh my God, Yiannah, it was such a pleasure to get to know you. And you're so wonderful and blah, blah, blah." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you didn't speak to me, not one single word this entire time, but okay.
Mm.
I share the same sentiment and she walks away. And not even 30 seconds later, my wrists start burning. And I look down and I just have these huge gashes, literally, like the skin was protruding, like there was actual scratches and gashes across both my wrists. And it
Mm.
was burning me because the skin was broken. And I was so confused, and I'm looking around. There's nothing around me that I could have bumped into. I'm like, what is happening? And a girlfriend comes up to me and she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, so and so just came and talked to me. She was holding my wrist. She was sharing these compliments. And then she left. And now I'm feeling this. And she goes, that girl used to cut herself. So what happened was when she touched me, she transferred that energy onto me. And I literally had gashes on my wrists.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend's like, Yiannah, aren't you protecting yourself? I'm like, what does that even mean? She goes, you have to energetically protect yourself so other people's energy, you
Yeah.
don't consume it. And the 5 is all about, there are these huge empaths and they tap into the
You.
collective energy and they're consuming and processing other people's stuff.
Yeah.
So I will say, I remember she said that she gave me this beautiful little prayer and it went away. And then I experienced that one other time just with something lighter than that. And I caught it in the moment that I said, oh, this is what's happening to me. And now every time I come into contact, even just simply having conversations with people where I just feel that energy is just not what I want, not what I want to consume or take on, in the middle of that conversation, in my mind, I'm energetically protecting myself. And now I don't have to have those situations where I'm processing and physically taking on other people's stuff. I just never understood that that's what it was.
Yes. Yeah. 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 So that's been an empath. And so unfortunately it was affecting you in a very, very physical way. For the most part, being an empath is that, you're just swamped by everybody else's. You walk into a room and you can feel everybody else's emotions, what's going on, what's happening. And for the most part as well, you can also hear what's happening. People are speaking to you and you hear what's not being said.
Yeah.
It's the most strangest thing. And it can cause problems in relationship. I've seen it cause lots of problems in relationships. I've seen with clients because they sense something's happening or something's coming. So they're asking the husband or the wife or the partner, what's the matter? What's the matter? Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. The person's like, there's nothing wrong with me. What are you talking about? No, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Something's wrong. What's the matter? What's the matter? Why are you so sad? Why do you feel so this and so that? And it isn't because it hasn't actually happened yet, but they can feel it coming in the fields. It moves through all the different stages. So 5s have the ability to feel what's in the fields. That's what makes them sensitive. That's what makes them hermits. That's what makes them isolated, because it's other people's energies. They have to learn how to embody that. Do you know? 5s can be so sensitive that, like what happened with you, that other people can literally peel their skin. You know, and so like I was just trying to think some of the sort of illnesses and diseases that 5s for the most part will have. Oh gosh, I can't think now.
Well,
But
mentally, emotionally, we'll take on anxiety, right? Anxiety
yes,
could show
yeah,
up, some form of
so I
depression,
think,
and a lot of times it's not even yours.
yeah,
There will be times where like I will feel a heaviness. I'll feel sad. I'll feel depressed. I'll just feel like I want to do nothing all day. And what I have learned is most of the time it's not even my stuff that I'm processing. And I
nope,
will
it's
ask
something else.
spirit. I will ask spirit. I'll say, God, if this is not mine, please take it away now. I don't want to carry other people's stuff. And it's funny how many times, almost immediately, within a minute, I'm just feeling so much better. And I'm like,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, yeah. So with
Yeah.
5s, what can happen as well is that if you're somebody that does readings, they will the actual those energies will turn up before you even enter the reading, because they come to tell you the story. Because the 5s have, like I said, they are the historians, so they hold it. It's like a walking, talking Akashic records.
Mm.
It's a heavy burden to bear, you know. So 5s are for the most part, spiritual warriors, they move through time like that. They're spiritual warriors. So that's why I say that in the physical part of a chart, it does not mean you lack the ability or you lack the power to do anything with it, because it is such an ethereal energy. What it means is that you have to come from a different place and a different space, and you have to access it. It's a superpower.
And, it's interesting that, we do say within the work when someone has eights, which is the most physical number in their spiritual triangle, it's a sign of grounding spiritual energies. And yet we don't then look at the reverse of saying when the person has fives, we don't say, oh, well, they're bringing that spiritual energy. They're really bringing those psychic abilities. Fives are incredibly psychic,
Incredibly
that they're
psychic.
bringing that into the physical world. And, what we've really been talking about is how there's that shift. You mentioned, yeah, it used to be seen as rare. And now I feel like am more often see fives in the physical triangle amongst people that I read. And granted, I'm more likely to read for someone in their 20s and 30s than in their 50s and 60s,
And you'll see
because of who my peer groups are, right? So it's like I more often see the fives within
vibes.
the physical triangle. And so I do think, we're
Fascinating,
seeing
isn't
this
it?
world shift. We're seeing more people being able to live openly with these psychic abilities. And this is kind of bringing us back to when I was talking about before, people kind of being kind of kept out of society, unable to integrate. Well, there was that time, like that whole psychic realm was not accepted, right? And we talk about fives, about speaking truth and being your true self, kind of bringing in that seven energy of authentic self. Well, there was kind of that time of you were going to either walk the path of being your true self, which would
Yep.
exclude you from society, or to fit in, but then you're not doing what your five energy is asking you to do, which is to speak your truth. And now we find the time that those roads have come together. You can speak your own truth and be accepted. And here's something we haven't mentioned yet with the fives, that they represent Aries energy. And through that Aries energy, they are pioneers. So all those people in the 80s, they pioneered the path that has allowed these paths to join together. If
Yep.
they hadn't pioneered that, I wouldn't be walking this path now, because I know I'm the type of person, if I had been alive in the 80s and had looked at the fork in the road, I would have chosen, I'm going to turn this off. I'm not going to speak this because I want to be accepted. And one things my guides have said to me, I sometimes said, why wasn't I someone who was awake as a child? And, and when I awake, I mean like having these gifts activated and knowing about it. And they were like, you would have turned it off. So what would have been the point? You are a hit the ground running type of person. So you woke up at a time when this could be accepted, when you wouldn't have
Accepted.
had to hide it,
Very
when you
interesting.
could speak your truth. And there are still people today that feel like they can't because they live in communities, they have social groups where they feel like it's not accepted. I'm very lucky that I, even though I wasn't, from, again, this family that really believed in spirituality, I've been able to be open, and it's been a little bit of a progress, of sometimes being wary. Can I say this? Can I not? And I'm so lucky every single time I've been so welcomed, and people I thought might judge me, maybe they don't believe, but they're not shutting me down and telling me I'm crazy. And I'm so grateful for that. And if I had met resistance, I know I probably would have kind of cowered and run away because of that want for acceptance.
Interesting. Good point. Good point. Good point. Yeah. 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 I like that.
So
I
thank
like
you, pioneers.
that. Yeah. In a sense of that energy, that stuff. See, for me, I was very different growing up. Obviously, like, my whole family was spiritual, my dad and my mum, so they were very knowledgeable. So I grew up in that. I grew up Saturday evening standing with my mum kitchen while she's doing bread, and she's telling me about this spirit and that spirit and this one, and like, oh, look, your grandfather's here, and all of that kind of
Oh,
stuff. So that kind of stuff was kind of like normal to me. Doesn't
so
mean that I
jealous.
don't like.
So jealous. Okay.
Yeah, so we all grew up like that. Um, so I had a kind of I was more, I had a kind of I don't care kind of attitude. So when I was 16 and 17, I was traveling to North London, which was really London was the only places in the early 90s, no, even beyond, late 80s, early 90s, whereby they were doing, you could go there and you could do meditation classes and you could do all that kind of stuff. It was up in like Tufnell Park. It was the only places because they were like awake. They were kind of like woke. And I'd find myself in like meditation classes with like 70, 80-year-old women, like who, because like, and they were like mediums and things like that. So like they were like really doing this path. And I was this one young little girl inside this class of all these people doing all this meditation. So I'd always been on my own doing stuff. However, when I was at school, my friends, my friends who I predominantly grew up with were Asian, Indian, Pakistani. So I had Muslim and Hindu friends, you know, so they all had their cultures and their religions. So we were, from a young age, we were sitting down outside where all the other kids were running around screaming and playing. We were sitting down talking about different religions and how they worked and stuff like that. So that's how I was. Even at primary school, age of 7, I was sitting down with a friend, and I can remember this so clearly, asking about who God really was. I'm 7, and what does eternity really mean? Does that mean that we go on and on and on and on and on? I knew things about, say, like plants and trees. I remember walking home, you know, you walk, well, for here, you walk home and, you know, we had to have these hedges, and I'd be plucking the leaves from the hedges. And at one point I plucked a leaf from the hedge and I thought to myself, what if this hedge is live? What if this hedge can actually feel me taking
Right.
the leaf? Is that really a good thing for me to be doing?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Crazy things that I did not know, but I did know, because I'm
Yep.
tapping into something else. Do you know what I mean? So all of that information was there. What happens with that energy as well is that, and I think, you mentioned it before, I think both of you, is that Hay can also come to you like a light language. So when it comes to you as like a light language, it takes time. The body has to download that into the system for it to integrate, and then it gets translated. And then sometimes you'll speak about things you didn't even know you even had knowledge of, and you'll be speaking about it. That's that energy that brings it in, because we all have spirit and we all have connection. So, but at the same point in time, it does have its negatives. If people don't really know about their energy, or people do know, you see lots of magicians and lots of people that can be very, very otherworldly can have 5 energy, and that can be used to the detriment in
Right.
magical ways and things like that, very manipulative ways, very because they know the power of the 5s. So that's how it gets manipulated, and that's how stuff like this happens. But I was going to throw in there as well that many leaders have 5s. Many leaders who it's about, and they have the ability of, say, speech and the power of speech and things like that. 5s is a leadership energy.
Yep. Especially with that Aries, you know, that's the thing,
Yeah,
you know, we
correct.
talk about 5s, you know, being quote unquote weak, and yet you would never look at an Aries and think that they
You would
were
never
weak
look
ever.
at that
Yeah.
and think that it's weak, ever,
Yeah. Yiannah and
ever.
I are both Aries. You know, we talk about that. Like we have this passion, we have this fire, we have
Yeah,
this drive. You know,
yeah.
here we are. We started this podcast, right? Within the soul contract. This is the first one to really exist in this way. You know, we pioneered this. And yeah, and again, I think it's just so much of that world is changing. And, you know, 5s, I don't think have been able to show up to their full capacity. The world wasn't ready for that to be able to be seen in the physical world. So if that's what you're judging off of what you sort of see, then you can kind of see how that impression can come through, because it wasn't, or that how that impression can be made because that energy was not coming through. It was existing in the spiritual. That's where they had so much of their
Was,
power.
but it's here, and it's
Yeah.
loud, and it's proud, and it's an energy that we're going to well, it's changing everything, really. It's changing everything. So, we go back to the name optimization. It has to, what is the intent? And it has to be done with care. And I think that's around any of the energies, any of the numbers. What is the intent? It really has to be about that. But the thing that I was saying as well, I touched on lightly that Chinese names are all short names. So 9 times out of 10, they are usually double numbers, loads of double numbers. And so if you want to see how people can be controlled through generations and generations and generations, it's there. All of it's there. It's the most interesting. I've had the opportunity to work within the Chinese culture over the last few years, and it is fascinating. I was just going to throw that in. Don't know why, but I felt I needed to say that. But short names, like I said, it works for your first name as well. Run the energy and see what's happening. And sometimes when you run, say like the birth name, the commonly used name, and then the first name, it sort of ties it up nicely together.
Well, it's interesting because I did run my birth name, and then Amanda, you don't know this, but the birth name I was given, I never used a day in my life.
That's
okay.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, you said, yeah.
So I did run my first birth name, and then I ran the name that I've used my entire life, which is Yiannah. And then I ran the optimized Yiannah with the H at the end. Okay. Which now gives me, with what you said earlier about that H, it gives me a little bit more, I had love for it, but it gives me a little bit more love and beauty for it. But when I ran all 3 of those, what I got was a shit ton of 5s and a shit tons of 3s. And I was like, yeah, this is why I need to talk. This is why I can't hold anything in. It has to come out or else I'm going to explode. I have to share it. I have to say it. I feel it, so I need to share it. I have to verbalize it. And it was one of those things where it was like, well, no shit, these are the numbers that are coming up because I resonate with them so much, but it is the power in it. And it's like, well, that is why they're so strong, but one thing that I love about the 5s is, on a very simple level, most of them, they're optimists. They're like that bridge. They're like that cheerleader where they're like, my glass is always half full. And it's like, Amanda, Lauren, what do you want to do? You want to write a book? Yes, let's write a book. Let me help you. They're like that bridge that's like, what are your dreams and your goals? And the 5s are the bridge are going to help you get there. And again, I'm not comparing myself to Tony Robbins at all, but it's that energy that like, what is it that you want to accomplish? And let's get you there.
Yeah.
And I love that energy about it because it's so easy to sit in a half glass full mentality. And especially in society, it is almost like not pushed into it, but it's like you can easily feel defeated or less than or not good enough or not having enough. And it's like, no, we don't need to live in that space because we are absolutely amazing and we can have anything and everything that we want, and let's get there. So I just love that part of the 5 because, like how you said, you guys were saying how we're seeing so much more of it and it's going to help just open and expand. That is beautiful. Like we need that. And it does feel so strong. I see it coming up in so many charts, so many people that are in front of me, and we pull it up and I'm like, yeah, it makes complete sense. And I love seeing it.
And Yiannah, it's so interesting that you talk about that, that shift from the glass half empty to the glass half full, because, we haven't talked about the 4 yet, but, the 4, well, we did talk about it with the 13-4, but, the 4 is where I see that lack and scarcity mindset can be created. So if you think about then the next number being the 5, it's where you then learn the other side of it. And so that's sometimes what's really interesting, really looking at the numbers, is seeing how they can build on each other, and how this is, one thing that this number maybe struggles with, and how the lesson can come from that following number at times, how they can build. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I was thinking about that before we started. I was, just going through things in my head and stuff like that. And I was thinking about, um, um, about the connection between all of the numbers and how they grow
Mm.
into each other and how they move into each other. Do you know what I mean? And you've just explained that with the 4s and the 5s. And then if you look at the 5s and the 6, the
Yeah.
6 is creation. What comes before that is spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very grounding, right? We've been talking about how the 5s benefit from grounding. The 6 is the
Yeah.
second most grounded number. So you do get that next step is grounding. And we often talk about 6 as being that spark of inspiration. But again, if you think about the Aries side of the 5, the Aries is often seen as the spark. And so I think what happens is a lot of times you do get that initial spark with the 5, and the 6 is what is able to really then take that spark. So it starts with the spark and create it, turn it into that idea and turn it into something that exists in the world. So yeah, I'm so excited for when we do talk about that number. It's a
About
great
the
one to
numbers.
talk about.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was just thinking as you're speaking about, a few of my clients that I've come across that have 5s, and even though they have 5s in places of, say, well, I call it challenge,
Mm-hmm.
um, um, they are so connected.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those 5s. They are so connected in their work. And then when you speak to them about their work, you actually have to start laughing because they are more connected than they've even realized. You know, sometimes even say, like, I know one person, he like his logo for his business was like he hadn't even realized how he had done it was connecting to spirit. It was like DNA and spirit. It was the craziest
Mm.
thing. And he then realized that that's why I've done it, because of this, of this energy that I have and this connection. He was more aware, because in a way, 5s are taught not to trust themselves. Not to trust themselves. And so, they look to everything else for solidness. We don't need it. And as we spoke about changes, things are no longer taking 20, 30 years to change. Things are changing within 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
Oof.
is almost as if things are becoming anew within 3 years. The energy, the people. We talk about generations. I don't even think we can even speak about generations now. We have to speak about children in the sense that, yes, they may belong to that one generation, but if they're born within certain spaces of time, they are carrying certain types of energies, and they are all like that. It's no longer these years of gaps that we have to wait for all of this energy to happen, but we are heading back to source. And what does that mean? That means being in the all of it. That means that this language that we have now is a huge barrier, because it doesn't say everything that needs to be said. And if we are not able to be connected to everybody, we don't really get the truth. So for 5s, their life can be irritating. It can be quite irritating, because 5s can hear, like I said, they hear what's not being said. I know 5s that are very abrasive. Oh my God, you wouldn't think they're a 5s, because 5s can be gentle, they're supposed to be gentle and supposed to be spiritual. They are so abrasive. I know 5s usually they
Aries.
swear like troopers. Yeah, see, Aries energy, and they swear like troopers, and they're very, very abrasive. Oh my God, I remember one time, and when my first understanding of 5s came from was uh, a colleague I was training with, and I couldn't believe when I saw her chart and that she had these 5s. The 5s were everywhere. Well, I can't remember where they were, but they were. She had 5s, and I thought, my God, you don't Every time she came on Facebook, it was this, man, somebody's always done her something. But she was, when I say she was switched on in a way that you could not imagine. She was switched on to the point whereby some of her work is out there in the fact that she was that switched on, and tapped in. But they fives can have walls because they need protection. They need protection. And so until they understand what that tenderness is about, what all of that stuff is about, they have this protection, and then they just move through people and situations, and fives will drop in and they will drop out of your life, and other people will come in and drop out. That's what they're doing. They're clearing up stuff. And to be quite honest with you, we're seeing a lot more fives come in because they're not that they're not meant for this world, but they're not meant for the karmic wheel. They're not meant for this constant turning and same. They're not. They're coming in to do a job, and they're getting out. Coming in and they're getting out. And so most of the times, and 9 times out of 10, fives are sticking up 2 fingers to all that sort of karmic stuff. You know, we've got to clear up 100 billion past lives and all of that type of stuff. They're saying, well, 2 fingers to that. I'm going to clear it up in in about, 5 years. I'm done and dusted with that. Don't bring me that crap anymore. Not interested. I've got things to do. Because it's not the truth. That's what they're saying. It's not the truth. It's not the truth. But in order to come into this earth plane, in order to be part of this planet, I have to abide by the rules coming in. But I tell you what, when I get in here, I'm busting a few of them. And that's what fives are doing. So, pioneers, warriors.
Yes, and the fives are known as the star seeds.
Yes.
Right? Star seeds incarnate at this time, have chosen to incarnate at this time so they can raise the collective consciousness. Like, let's wake up. Let's wake up, people. Let's go.
Yes.
And what's interesting is I never knew this about myself, but okay. What I have found is that fives will, quote unquote, lie to avoid conflict. We don't want the conflict. I will give you the answer that appeases you just to avoid this thing that may happen, and I don't want to deal with it. And what's interesting is I've noticed in my life, I have said time and time again to people that I have had close relationships with, partners, if you tell me the truth about a situation immediately, I don't care how bad it is, if you just come to me with the truth, we can get through anything. But if I find out on my own, it's game over. The gloves are off. That Aries fire is coming, and it is coming full force. And I guess I never really realized. So when I learned about this energy being all about that truth, I started laughing because I was like, oh, this is why it's so important for me. And I stress this so much with people in my life because I need it to be known. That aspect is so important to me, and it almost like is like a make or break, because I can get through anything if you're honest.
If you're honest. And fives are like, and oh my God, that is so perfect, because as well, and they will find it. They will find the truth.
Yes.
Fives will uncover your crap like nobody can. They will find it because we're led to it. So you can hide it. You can hide it. Do you know what I mean? And fives will be led straight to the truth, because for the most part, like I said, they're not here to waste time. They're really not here to waste time. So we're cracking this wide open. So if you think you're going to hide things, like I've seen people in relationships whereby, partners have hidden things, literally hidden stuff from them about the fact, well, they might have been having affairs or things like that, but there's evidence inside the house hidden, and they're not even looking for it. And they would just say, I was told to go to a particular space, a particular bag, look in that bag. And they said, I was going about my life. I was going about my life like anybody else, normal day. I was in a good place. And I was just told to go to a bag. I'm thinking, why do I need to go to that bag? It's not even my bag. It's his bag. Why do I need to go to that bag? Go to the bag. She went to the bag and looked in the bag. Nothing. She said, well, this is mad. And she heard this voice say, lift up the base, in the base of the sports bag.
Mm-hmm.
Lift up the
Oh.
base,
Oh,
lift up
God.
the base. And in the base of the sports bag was a little tape recording. And she said, it was a little tape recording, and she went and played it. And on the tape recording was a partner had gone to meet the mother of a baby he had just had.
Oh.
He had recorded the conversation. And the first meeting, he didn't know that she was pregnant, apparently. But she eventually got in contact with him and said, well, I've had this baby. And he went over and he recorded the conversation. And that was where he had hid the tape. Now, his
Wow.
partner had no idea that this had happened. And she was merrily going about her life. One day, she was just told to go and look. It was always about being in a space of truth. So it's like, no matter what you do, I mean, I always say to my kids, it doesn't matter what happens. I'm telling you now, I'm going to find out. And I have
Right.
no idea how, but I'm going to find out. So
Right.
it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. You might as well just come and say, Mum, this has happened. And we just deal with it.
Yes.
Let me find out on my own after asking you 601 times, then stuff's going to go down. So I'm going to be,
Yes. Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
the intuition is so strong. And I think
So
what
strong.
happens is before you even realize that that's your intuition, it's so easy to dismiss it. It's so easy to just be like, oh, I had this thought or whatever, and you just move along. And
Mm.
what's interesting is I'm gonna share a little story that happened to me yesterday. Yesterday morning, I was running an errand with my daughter, and I left, and I was driving back towards home, but I had to switch opposite directions. I was going east, but I wanted to go west. I turn around in the street and I come back, and all of a sudden I get this thought in my mind. And the thought is, I feel so blessed to not have trouble with the law. I feel so blessed to not have like legal issues or anything like that. And all of a sudden I see behind me this cop who's really close to my car. And you know, when they come that close to you, you know they're about to pull you off. You know you did something, right? And I was like, what is happening? At the same time, I kind of blank it out and I'm calling my sister to tell her where I was just at because I knew she'd get a kick out of it. And she answers and I go, you'll never guess where I just was. And she goes, where? The police station?
What?
And I was like, why did you just say that? She's like, I don't know, like the way you said where I was, like I just figured like maybe it was something like that. And I'm like, there is literally a cop right now on my ass. And before I could even finish that statement, the lights come on. And I was like, I'll call you back. So I pull over and I was just puzzled because I'm like, I wasn't speeding. I don't know what I did wrong for to be pulled
Yeah.
over. And he must have seen the look on my face. He comes very nice man. He comes up to my window and he goes, what you did was you turned on a no turn on red light. Okay.
Mm.
So I said, oh my God, officer, I need to tell you what just happened to me. I don't even know why I even felt the urge to share this. I'm like, I was literally just thinking, I have no legal issues, like no trouble with the law. I'm calling my sister. She's like, she thinks I'm at the police station. And then you pull me over. Like I literally created this entire thing in my mind and it was just happening. My sister was tapped in. The officer was tapped in. It was wild. Long story short, he did leave me with a warning. I did not get a ticket. So I said, thank you, universe. Like, what a beautiful gift to not get the ticket. Because I didn't even realize that I had made a turn when I was not allowed to make the turn. I wasn't
Right.
familiar with the area. But then I had that moment afterwards where I was like, look how tapped in like I was and my sister, like the way that whole thing played in, it was very easy to just be like, God, what a coincidence, and just throw that away.
Right.
And I thought, no, I'm going to acknowledge this. Thank you, universe, for showing me how this all works, how easy it comes together. And I just laughed and laughed because I thought, how insane. It was in my face. And that is most of the time how it is. It is thrown in your face, but it's so easy to dismiss it if you don't even realize
Yeah.
that that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. 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 And so you've got to bring that information to others.
Yep.
You've got to show them, you know what I mean, the power of the energies, whatever energy they have, whatever number they have. But I think why it possibly came across like that within the class, that, you know, that fives get a bad deal. But it's our job to bring the truth, and it's our job to bring the power and to show that embodying that spirit and embodying the power, it's an amazing thing to have, you know, and it makes us alive, and so many people are just not alive,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it's living. So that's what I say. Not a lot of not everybody, like we spoke about, is going to optimize their names, and not everybody needs to optimize their names. It's about bringing consciousness, understanding what your superpower is.
Yes.
But you're not negating the negativity or the challenges of a particular energy. You're not. But I think that even numbers in a space of, I always look at it like this with the charts, even numbers that are in a karmic space or a space of challenge, do not, and this has always been my statement, do not let those numbers define you. Let
Mm-hmm.
them inform you. And then that allows for space of growth and for a freedom. Otherwise, people get trapped. They get trapped in that because we're told them it's karmic energy. It's never going to go away. Do you know what I mean? And you've got these challenges, and you're going to have to be working through it, and you're going to have to be working through it, and stuff like that. Don't let it define you. Let it inform you. That particular slot and space is the history, is telling you about, it's like the storybook. It's telling you the history, and then the rest of the chart is telling you what you can go on to do to make magic happen. So you've got to decide what kind of human you came to be.
Oh, I love that. It's a good question for people to ponder, because I think it's something people don't really think about. You
Yeah,
know, I love
yeah,
that. Okay,
yeah.
ladies, any final thoughts on our beautiful 5A?
I do have a final thought. I can't believe this hasn't come up in our conversation yet. Is, this energy, one of the things that is so beautiful about this energy is that this is the teacher of teachers energy. It's
Yes.
one of my favorite things to tell people when I see it in a chart. We talk about unlocking their superpowers. I say to them, like,
Yeah.
do you see yourself as a teacher? Is that something you've started to do? And sometimes you do see that happening for them already, or it's something to think about, to get them excited for in the future. And we talk about the astrology associations. There's also tarot, and so in tarot, in the major arcana, the 5 would be the Hierophant, which is certainly seen as a teacher, sometimes a religious leader, but a teacher energy. So there's this beautiful teacher energy to this number as well, and definitely one of my favorite aspects is the teacher of teachers.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. I like that. So thank you for reminding us about that. And also, I look at the energy, that with that energy, and I think, Yiannah, like when we spoke before, and I'd said it in a sense, without even seeing your numbers, I said in the sense that you're always going to be at the top of your game. Doesn't matter what's presented to you, you're always going to be, you take it and you turn it into something else. You're always going to be at the top of your game. So I think the teachers of teachers comes along with that. It's always about being at the top of your game and then imparting that information onto others. So teachers of teachers literally means that you are speaking that, you're going out and you're sharing that, and it's about anchoring and accessing accessing that energy, and it's not from a place of ego.
Mhm.
It's really from a place of sovereignty.
Mm.
We have to start making the distinction between that, you know, so that we actually do anchor the energy. So yeah, it's a beautiful energy. Teacher of teachers.
Lovely. Lovely.
It's
Okay.
boss energy. It's
Yeah.
goddess energy.
And somebody really recently said to me, I want to share this properly. Something about the energy that I was bringing was like the backbone, like and for me, it completely connected with the 5. It's like that teacher energy. It's the teacher of teacher, where it's like you're the backbone that's going to help facilitate, help create, bring those groups together, teach, share the knowledge, get people going on their journey, that awakening, right? You're here to facilitate that awakening in people, to spark that one thing that helps open and awaken and start this beautiful journey. And it's about like that bridge, it's like that backbone, like let's help you get there. You know,
Yeah.
and I just thought, what a beautiful way to think about that, because again, my 11 twos do not think about it that way. But then when you hear people will say something like one specific way, and all of a sudden it registers, and you're like, oh, this picture now is complete. It
That
makes
you
so
get it.
much
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 11s are like that.
yeah. So
Mm.
anyway,
But sorry, go on.
no, you.
No, I was just going to say that a lot of people, the 5s are energies that you have to grow into.
Yep.
You have to grow into it. You know, it's like a seedling. You know, you put it in the ground, you ground it, you root it, you allow it to grow, and then it begins to bud and spread, and it does what it's supposed to do. It becomes the flower that it's meant to do. So it's an energy that has to be grown into, because it can be quite overpowering once people really understand it. What am I supposed to do with this? So even in a soul destiny, what am I supposed to do with that? What am I working towards? Do you know what I mean? Even in the goals, what is it? What am I working towards? But you're working towards union. Not all of us have come here to be just earthlings. That's why I said, what human are you here to be? And it is whether people feel very 3D or not. Sometimes our job is to just sow the seed. It doesn't matter how far they take it, it's to sow the seed that there's more to them than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes our only job is to set them on the journey, not get
Mhm.
invested in how they're going to get to
Right.
the end or making it to the end, but is to sow the seed that sets them on the journey to becoming. And it really is as simple as that, you know.
Beautiful. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an absolute pleasure for both Lauren and I. We
Oh,
we always feel so blessed to be able to share time with people like you, who just embody the work, who understand it on such a beautiful level, and just your energy and what you bring to it is just magical, and we are so thankful. Please let our listeners know where they can find you.
so you can find me at the alchemyoflightbody.com.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody, make sure you head over to our Instagram, the Let's Talk Vibes podcast. Let us know what is your truth, right? Share your truth on what you think of this episode or your truth in general. And if you need to know whether or not you have 5s in your charts, you can head over to our website, the ltvpodcast.com, in order to request a free PDF of your birth chart.
And as always, everybody, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment on our content. It is the best way to support this podcast, and we appreciate it so much. Have a blessed day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.